Hey guys, welcome to Pistons Talk Podcast Postgame Show. We are going to recap this Detroit Pistons game. They just got done playing the Phoenix Suns. This podcast will probably be 20, 30 minutes at the most, so you guys can go watch the Detroit Lions. They do play at 8 o'clock. I'll be watching that game as well as you guys. But before we do get into this podcast, if you can do me a favor, hit that like button. It does help out the YouTube channel a ton, pushes our content with the way the YouTube algorithm is. If you're an audio listener, make sure to give us a 5-star review wherever you do get your podcast. But let's get into today's game. Pistons played the Suns on this Saturday afternoon, pushed the game back actually from 5-4. Which was really, smart by the Detroit Pistons to do that, because I don't think a lot of people would choose the Pistons over the Lions, especially with the playoffs, but that's just how it is. But let's get into the first quarter. So with the first quarter, Tobias Harris came out very aggressive. He had 13 points in this first quarter. The vets brought a ton of energy. Tobias, Malik had a bounce back game, and THJ was scoring. And it was a game where it was just back and forth. Obviously, Devin Booker played. He was healthy. The last game the Pistons played Phoenix out west, he wasn't playing. KD was healthy. So this was a relatively healthy Suns team that the Pistons were going against. And I thought that they held their own in this first quarter. And I think one thing with this game was the foul trouble. Cade got into foul trouble. Duren got into foul trouble. Stu got into foul trouble. Duren had 2 quick fouls in this first quarter. And I thought this was a game where he was pretty active on both ends of the floor. But he gets 2 quick fouls. Stu has to come in for him, give the Pistons some rotational minutes. And the Pistons end the first quarter only trailing by 1, 30-29. Going into the second quarter, Stu gets into foul trouble, and we finally see Paul Reed, which, here's my thing with Paul Reed. I think he's too good of a basketball player to just play in case Isaiah Stewart or Jaylen Duren get into foul trouble. Paul Reed gave the Pistons a little bit of a surge, going into this second quarter. But, I'm not going to get too much on the Paul Reed stuff. Devin Booker was cooking. KD was cooking within that second quarter. But the Pistons cut a 7-point lead down to 1. So going into halftime, Phoenix had a 61-60-point lead. And this was a game where you look at the box score for Cade Cunningham. It was not his best shooting performance. At halftime, he made only 3 shots on 14 attempts. I don't know if his knee's bothering him. I don't know if his thumb is bothering him. Saw the athletic trainer work on his thumb throughout the game. He's wearing a brand new knee brace that I haven't seen last month. This is brand new in January. He's wearing a full compression knee sleeve. So I don't know if his knee's bothering him. Don't know really what's going on with Cade. But, coming out of halftime, the Pistons brought way more energy, I thought, in the third quarter. They regained the lead, even though that they were only trailing 1 point. They regained the lead in the first, 6-7 minutes into this third quarter. But what happened was Kevin Durant was doing Kevin Durant things. He scored 20 points in the third quarter alone. And I think we can all agree, Kevin Durant is one of the best basketball players in terms of just getting his shot, getting to his spots. And Tobias Harris did his best trying to guard him tonight. But, there's nothing you can really do when KD is in a group like that. The Suns regain a lead. Pistons had a 7-point lead in this third quarter. They get a 3-point lead to end the third quarter 98-95. And this was aiming to be a very exciting, entertaining fourth quarter. It was back and forth. Both the Pistons and the Suns were exchanging baskets. There was not much defense with this basketball game. And the Suns aren't really known for their defense. They're actually one of the worst defensive teams I've ever seen in quite some time. If you look at the final score, they only won by 4 points. But KD was getting to his spots in the fourth. Booker had a couple of pretty nice, plays getting to his spots as well. But I think if you look at this game and you watch this game, the Detroit Pistons did get beat, in my opinion. I think that they didn't hit free throws, and the offensive rebounds were just terrible. I don't think the Suns were the better basketball team tonight. I just think, when you shoot 24 out of 36 from the line and you give up 50 rebounds, it's going to be pretty hard to win this basketball game. And those are two areas where we've talked about throughout the season. The rebounding on this team is really bad. Too many times this year, we've had opposing teams get 10, 15, some up to, close to 20 offensive rebounds against this basketball team. They do a really bad job at boxing out. The free throw shooting as well. I thought that this year they've been really bad. You can't shoot 60% from the free throw line and expect to beat a high octane Phoenix Suns team. Pistons end the week 1-2. Obviously would have been great to end the week 2-1. The Pacers game, it was really low energy throughout the game. This Suns game, it seemed like they brought the energy in the third quarter, but overall there are some things that I think this team does need to clean up. Don't know how much time they will have, because if you look at the schedule, this is going to be a very long West Coast trip. It's going to be very challenging for this team to, I think, scrape some wins together. Not saying that I'm losing faith in this basketball team, but just these past two games, if that's a sample size of what's to come with this road trip, hope they can, clean up the defensive rebounding, securing more defensive rebounds, clean up the free throw shooting a little bit. I think this is a team where, Tim Hardaway Jr. tonight had a chance to make it a 1-point game. He misses two crucial free throws. Jaylen Duren tonight, overall, he's kind of dipped from last year as a free throw shooter. Just something that I've noticed, and I'm sure you guys have noticed as well. Pistons do lose this game to the Suns 125-121. We are going to get into some comments and questions with you guys right now. And I do see a couple of questions from you guys that are watching live right now. This one comes from Wake Up, and it has to do with Cade Cunningham. It's Cade and the Misfits. This G League roster ain't good enough for Cade to drag to the playoffs. They need to get him some help immediately. I don't care who they trade outside of Cade. None of them are good. Okay, here's the thing, man. When I see a comment like this, I think it's very reactionary, especially with this week. When they were on a 5-game winning streak, I think our mood with this team was a lot different. I'm not going to say that this is a G League roster, because it's not. What we saw with the 14-win roster, that was a G League roster. Out of 30 teammates that Cade had last year, 17 of those guys are no longer in the league. This isn't a G League roster. Was it a bad game? Yes. From a rebounding standpoint, yes. From a free throw shooting standpoint, absolutely. This isn't a G League roster. Cade does need some more help. I do agree with you. I think when I'm looking at it, they need more of a secondary creator and a ball handler. Obviously, that is Jaden Ivey, but I don't think Jaden Ivey's coming back this season. I just don't. Probably the earliest he could come back is late April, early May, and that would basically mean the Pistons not only need to make the playoffs, but they also need to win a playoff series to see Jaden Ivey, right? Don't know how Trajan's going to attack this deadline, but to call this a G League roster, I don't really think so. They're 21-21 in 42 games. They're playing 500 basketball. I think that is something that, as a Piston fan, we could basically say that's progress, because you only won 14 games last year. I don't think this is a G League roster whatsoever. K does need help, though. Comment from Chili Damon. Paul Reed needs playing time. I agree. When Stu was out with an injury and JB was forced to play Paul Reed, I think it was during the West Coast trip, if I do remember. Or I can't remember if it was Stu out with an injury or Duren. It might have been Duren. Same kind of thought process here. Paul Reed needs more playing time. The fact that he only gets playing time if someone's injured or they're in foul trouble, I don't like it. Every time he comes into the game, immediate impact, steals, blocks, buckets. I know there's 3 centers on this roster. You're rolling with Jaylen Duren and Isaiah Stewart, but I know it's easier said than done. But Paul Reed does need more playing time. Every time he comes in, the energy is uplifted. Even if you give him a good 5 to 10 minutes a night, maybe split the time with Stu when Stu's not, providing any scoring. I think that's an avenue that JB could take, but it's really weird. Third string center. I don't think he's a third string center, but that's just my opinion. I'm not a coach at the end of the day. I'm sure it's easier said than done. But I do agree with you, Chili. Paul Reed definitely does need more playing time. It's just a thing where it's like I don't really understand why he doesn't get more clock with this team. Letting Nick Richards punk us is why we lost. Yeah, Nick Richards was crashing the glass. He was getting the loose balls. You look at the rebounding numbers. I mean, Phoenix had 50 rebounds to the Pistons 43, and they had 13 offensive rebounds. That's going to be hard to come back from, I think. And it's kind of been a theme with this team that they don't do a good job of securing the defensive rebound. If, Duren's not grabbing it, you have 4 other Pistons out there just looking up to see who's going to grab the rebound. Collectively, I think they need to crash the glass harder just to collect those defensive rebounds so you're not trying to get back on defense again and, exert more energy that you didn't need to exert. You just have to grab those rebounds more often. We need a Batman to his Robin. Brandon Ingram is available. Yeah, just saw a report from Pistons Fleet citing Jake Fisher. Doesn't sound like that the Pistons are too interested in Brandon Ingram these days, which, hey, man, if that's their strategy, that's their strategy. Ingram's going to be expensive, not only to, pay him this summer, but also the assets that you may have to give up. I don't really think that the Pistons are in the market for a Brandon Ingram just because of the contract situation. Harris's defense is a problem. See, I don't see that, Caden. I think Harris, for what it's worth, he did his best tonight guarding Kevin Durant. Nobody can really guard Kevin Durant. I think actually Tobias Harris this season has been a better defender than advertised. I think in situations, Harris is put in positions to defend centers, especially if they're stretch fives. And maybe that's what you're seeing. But I don't really think Tobias is the problem. I think Tobias, for what it's worth defensively, I think he's been at least above average. I don't really think Tobias Harris defensively is the problem. Mr. Ray, is it safe to say we need another guy on this team while Ivy is out? Cade being the primary initiator and primary scorer is not doing him any justice at the moment. Yes, it is safe to say we need another guy. Now, who is that guy? I don't know. It sounds like what the Pistons want to do at this deadline is if they are going to make a move, Mr. Ray, it's going to be someone that is under contract for more than 1 year. It's not going to be a player that's on an expiring deal like an Ingram, it sounds like. Especially with Cade's rookie max extension going into effect next year, that's going to eat up a lot of the Detroit Pistons cap, $40 million to be exact. So look at certain players on rosters that have more than 1 year left on their deal. And I think those are the type of players that the Pistons are going to target. Now, Can I give you a name? Not off the top of my head without looking at some rosters. But maybe it's a secondary ball handler next to Cade with Jaden Ivey being out. Maybe it's more wing scoring. Not really sure how the Detroit Pistons plan to attack this trading deadline. February 6th, I believe, is the date in which they have up to make trades. So it'll be very interesting. It's the 18th of January as we're recording this podcast. So I think as we get closer to the deadline, these rumors are going to start to heat up more and more. So it'll be very interesting to see what Trajan and Dennis Lindsey do with this deadline. But I do agree with you, man. Like, definitely need another, ball handler. Cade's trying to set up the offense and get his and defend. He looked gassed out there. And I think that's why a lot of his shots over these past 2 games have been short. It's just because the guy's exhausted. He's been wearing a knee compression brace. He's getting his thumb worked on. Like, he's trying to do everything. And I think he's going to have games like this where maybe the shots are a little flat or he doesn't have a good shooting night because JB and the Pistons are asking him to do basically everything like you mentioned. Off-ball Sasser is a bucket, plays so much freer when he isn't the point guard. We did see that tonight, Chili. Thanks for mentioning that. I did want to talk about that for a minute. So when Cade was out there, the Pistons decided to play Marcus Sasser off-ball, and he was cutting and is making the shots. I thought Sasser had a pretty good game. You look at the box score. He was scoring. He was getting to his spots, rebounding, setting up his teammates a little bit. I think the sooner the Pistons realize that he's not an everyday point guard, of just a guy that you can, slot at shooting guard, I think he can, play his game. And that's what we've been saying, like, all year. Like, we know we don't have a backup point guard. Sasser kind of falls into that position because it's a need right now. But, yeah, I like to see Sasser playing off ball more. We need another ball handler big time. They're doing better at fitting Sasser's game, but it's not enough. Yeah, I agree, Chuck. Like, I do want to say this. I think Sasser has made huge progressions in ball handling and playmaking since the Summer League, but it's still not there. It's still not there where you feel comfortable enough to, give him backup point guard duties when Cade Cunningham is resting. I think that if that's the Pistons' plan of developing him into a backup guard for Cade, cool, but I don't think it's there yet. I think he needs more time to develop that. But I've always said, and I think a lot of you guys have said the same thing, like, Marcus Sasser is better playing off ball. He's better of kind of like a catch and shoot guy. And I tend to agree with you guys. I mean, when we had James Edwards on this podcast over the summer, like, he had mentioned, have Marcus Sasser play off ball. Let him be a bucket getter. Let him kind of be like your Lou Williams, Jamal Crawford off the bench type of scorer. And I think that's what his niche and his role will be in the NBA. Obviously, the reason why the Pistons are playing him as a backup guard is because they don't really have any other options. I mean, unless you just want to go like down in the G League, give a look at Donis Jenkins, who's been playing a lot better in the G League as of late. I think he scored 20-plus points again with the Crews. I don't really think the Pistons are going to do that. I think looking for more guard help at the deadline may be an option and an avenue that Trajan and the Pistons look to possibly do. Mr. Ray, Sasser is a 6'1" shooting guard. I can't really call him a combo guard. He's a scoring guard. Yeah. I mean, at the end of the day, like, he's an undersized 2 guard, but he's an elite shooter. Like, when he gets hot, we know that it's really hard to stop him, has a nice handle, can get to the rim. He's really scrappy defensively. But I think, trying to give him backup point guard minutes right now is just kind of doing him a disservice as the type of player that we think he possibly could be in the NBA. We have a comment from the Grind family. please bring Duren off the bench. His paint defense is atrocious. We've talked about that as well. I honestly think that Duren throughout the season has had little glimpses of playing okay defense, but overall it's been pretty bad. I don't really know what JB and the coaching staff's plans are for the 5 spot. I've told you guys, I don't think it's set in stone. I think the center position right now is up for grabs. If you look at it, like, we have 3 centers that are probably backups on most teams. And that's no shot at Duren. He's 21 years old. He's still very young. He's still, learning how to set up a dribble hand-up offense. He's still navigating how to pick up defenses and processing it. But I think overall, I do agree with you. I think his paint defense at times for a majority of the season hasn't been great. It's been a tough watch. That's why I really liked when they played Paul Reed during that West Coast trip, because I think for the most part, Paul Reed can test everything. He might not block everything. He might foul a little bit too much for your liking, but the effort's a hell of a lot better, in my personal opinion. Duren was 15 and 10 and a +6 tonight, best of any starter. Yeah, I mean, he was, Chuck, but I think plus minus can be very misleading, especially if you get rebounds. That's how you get that plus minus up. But overall, I think, just defensively, you want a little bit more out of Jaylen Duren at the end of the day. I've told you guys that I think this team can go so much farther if he locked in defensively as much as he locks in offensively. I don't really need him to, be a 20 and 10 guy. If you could just give me a good 13, 9 and a couple blocks a game, I'm good. But he has played better as of late, but it's weird. I don't get it. The effort is really hit or miss with him, but I think overall past 2 games he's played better. But agreed, Duren has also become the most criticized player by far. A lot of early in the season was dead on, but a lot better lately. Yeah, he has been better. I will give you that, Chuck. I think overall, you're right. In the beginning of the season, Duren wasn't playing good basketball on either end of the floor. But as of late, he's been rebounding better. He's been trying to process plays defensively a little bit better. They've been using him more in blitzing situations, which is, I think, actually helps him process plays a little bit faster. But overall, when you're getting outworked by Nick Richards, that's not a good look. Nick Richards was a bench player for the Charlotte Hornets. He was a guy that Charlotte wasn't really using a whole lot. And you look what Mark Williams is doing in Charlotte right now. He's going absolutely crazy. I do want to get to MB Wells' question. What about inserting Bobby? I will say this. I think when you watch Bobby in the Cruise, which I've caught a couple of games, there are glimpses of him, putting the ball on the floor, making open 3-point shots. Defensively, he switches, he communicates. But I think this might be a year where Bobby's actually just a red shirt. He's not going to play a whole lot. I think it's just a development year for him with the Motor City Cruise. And if that's the plan, cool. I don't know if JB and the coaching staff really think that he's a better option than Simone Fontecchio right now. Which, hey, they're coaches. It's their team. I think Bobby needs just more reps and more practice. He hasn't gotten a whole lot of NBA action. I think the only NBA action he got was against the Brooklyn Nets. He didn't even touch the ball. Or I should say score the ball, rather. I think Bobby is still very raw as a prospect. If you want to give him more playing time, you might want to basically give him reps, but give him garbage time and work his way up into the rotation. You drafted him in the 2nd round. You extended him for 4 years. So obviously this organization saw something in Bobby, but I don't really know if he's ready to have rotational minutes right away. I think the way you do it is just slowly creep him into this rotation and see what's there. But I'm pretty anxious to see Bobby Klintman as well. I was really high on him, especially after the summer league. I thought there was something there, but maybe this Detroit Pistons coaching staff feels that he needs more development with the Motor City Cruise before he can get consistent rotational minutes with the Pistons. Bobby's getting major minutes right now is a white flag to the team. We don't want to do that. We don't want to do that to the team unless we implode. Yeah, I agree, Chuck. I mean, like, I've caught a couple of Motor City Cruise games. Like, he's looked good in the Cruise, but there have been games where there's just like turnovers where, it kind of leaves you scratching your head. But, overall, he's still really raw as a prospect. I think there's a lot of developing that needs to be done there on his part. But I think if you're a Piston fan expecting Bobby to, play 15 to 20 minutes this year, I don't think it's this year. I think it's just a thing where the Crews want to develop him, and he's getting, number one priority. He's starting every game for the Crews. He's a main focal point with the Crews, so they're giving him as much reps and opportunity for Bobby right now in the Motor City Cruise, in which I think, it's good. If he's not going to get playing time, you might as well get as much time, touches, defensive reps in the G League as you can, because you just don't want this guy sitting on the bench doing nothing. Charles Butler, Bobby ain't raw. They hold him back. See, that's where I disagree. I think go watch a Motor City Cruise game, watch a full Motor City Cruise game. You'll see what I'm talking about. There are instances where he just has mental lapses throughout the game. If you just watch highlights, I think they'll fool you a little bit. I'm very high on Bobby. I think he's going to be a good player, but I just think right now he needs more reps with the Crews. And I don't think he's going to get those reps playing with the Detroit Pistons when you have Tobias at power forward, Simone backing him up most nights, and then he would be the third string power forward. Like, I think if I'm the Pistons, throwing him in the G League and giving him more opportunity, more reps, I think is better for his development than sitting on the bench and practicing with the team and not getting any playtime whatsoever. Just watching from the bench. I guess that's one way of, just development, but I think he probably wants to play games. He seems like the type of player that would rather, get reps in the Crews than just watch from the bench. But at the end of the day, I think that Bobby will play. I just don't know if it's going to be a lot this year. Unless there's an injury, unless Tobias gets injured, unless Simone gets injured, or there's a trade over these next couple of weeks, I wouldn't expect a whole lot of him in a Detroit Pistons uniform. I think if you do want to watch him, definitely go check out the Motor City Cruise games. He's one of the main focal points down there with, Ron Harper Jr. and Donis Jenkins and Tolu Smith. Like, they have a pretty fun roster down there. But Holland is the project right now. And yeah, Ron Holland is a project, Chuck, but I think that project, the more I watch, he's developing really fast. Like, his 3-point shot, he hit 2 threes today. Like, he's not scared to shoot 3-point shots. The way he can just, put the ball on the floor, get to the hoop, defensively switching, just being a menace out there. Like, Ron Holland, the way he's developed this year has me very excited to be a Piston fan, because he's developing so fast in front of our eyes that I think it's pretty safe to say by like year 3, year 4, like, this kid's going to be a monster. I think the 3-point shot is going to develop. I think he's going to be a guy that could easily shoot 35% from 3, shot 41% from 3 in the month of December alone. So Fred Vincent and this coaching staff have really helped him expand his game. Ron has just been really exciting to watch. So I'm really excited with the development of Ron Holland. I just wish Sasser would shoot more and like kind of have that confidence that Ron has, because a lot of times Sasser will actually like pass up a 3-point shot. I don't know if it's like maybe he's not comfortable shooting threes right now, or maybe he's just trying to facilitate setting up his teammates. But like when you watch Ron shoot a three and you watch Sasser shoot a three, like the difference in confidence is like night and day. But not to say Sasser's not confident. It just he's just letting that thing fly. He doesn't care, and I love it. Mr. Ray, he made 2 threes tonight, and they look good in rhythm, which is awesome to see from any young guy, but especially from a lackluster shooter coming into the league like Ron was. Yeah, I mean, like when you look at just Ron, like if you watch the game in the beginning of the season versus in January, like the confidence level is up. He's shooting that thing. He's not afraid to shoot it, even though he's like a 22% 3-point shooter for the year. He has the confidence just to let it fly. Like Cade threw a out of bounds pass right to Ron right away, and Ron hit that corner three. And there are games where I'm expecting him just to shoot the three. Like it might not go in, but the fact that he's shooting it and not hesitating, I think is a great sign, because I think with more reps and more time with Fred Vincent in this new coaching staff, he could easily become one of those two-way, guard wing forwards that the Detroit Pistons have on this team. Really, really excited for him and like what the future holds, because every game I watch, he's just getting better and better, getting to the basket, defending. But that's just what I've been seeing out of Ron lately. But I'm probably going to wrap up this podcast, you guys. Lions do play in about 20, 30 minutes. I'll let Chuck get the last question, actually, before we wrap it up. You really expect us to beat Durant and Booker after beating them already once this year? No, I think that we had a good shot. It's just the free throw shooting and the offensive rebounding was really bad. I think if they make their free throws like at a 70% clip, Chuck, this game's a little bit closer. But at the end of the day, like they're still competing their ass off each and every night. But a game like tonight, like I don't really think the Pistons lost to the Suns. I think they just kind of shot themselves in the foot, like allowing that many offensive rebounds, not hitting their free throws and when they needed to hit them. But overall, the effort was there. But I am going to wrap this podcast up, you guys. Lions play in about 30 minutes. We will be live again tomorrow. We're doing a really special podcast. We're having Zarek on, like we usually do once a month, but we're also having his brother Zay on as well. So I'm going to have both Zarek and Zay on the podcast tomorrow at 7:15 around that time. So if you guys want to, watch us talk about the Detroit Pistons, trade rumors, all that stuff, we will be recapping the week, latest trade rumors for you Detroit Pistons. But see you guys tomorrow. Hope you guys have a great night, and go Lions.